Okay. Hello, Julie, Patrick, and Robin. Hi. Happy Sunday. Happy St. Patty's Day. Anyone wearing green? Patrick.
No green.
Okay.
I have a little green on my sweater.
Yeah.
Green.
Okay. My bra's green. That just happened. I just grabbed it. It's like, okay, yeah. And no pinching. No pinching. Robin, you wearing green?
Bracelet.
Let's see it.
Labradorite.
No.
Green.
Ooh, nice.
There you go.
Nice. Everyone who's coming in, thank you for being here on this Sunday. We are Peter's here.
Hi, Peter. Hi, Peter.
Peter's bra is green too.
Really? That sounds like fun.
You say that.
Hi, Laura.
So today we're going to talk about the astrological houses, and they are very prominent in Western astrology, but in true sidereal astrology, they are used, but they're not, if I understand correctly, they're not really, are they emphasized when it comes to readings for true sidereal, or not so much? Depending on the reader?
Yeah.
It's reader specific.
It is. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to go through the houses, and we're going to get Julie, Robin's, and Patrick's point of view, how to interpret the houses. And before we went live, that's why we're a few minutes late. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry. I have a cold, so I'll do my best to get to people. So before we went live, Julie was talking about instead of the signs that we associate with the astrological houses, like the first sign is or the first house is Aries, Taurus, so on and so forth, she makes reference to ages. And she went on to explain this because she is working on a massive project, and she's getting epiphanies left and right, which has been wonderful. And it's shape-shifting the direction of how this project is going. So Julie, start the way with this, and but let's keep it basic. Let's go to how we know the houses and how you come to ages. And the same, Patrick and Robin, I need your input as well.
Yeah. When I started my project that I'm working on right now, I wasn't really sure if houses would change. But what I've really found is that the houses are based on numerology. And the numerology is old. Like, this is the very old numerology. The 1 is the body, the 2 is the resources, the 3 is communication, the 4 is stability, and the 5 is love, like your children, love affairs. The 6 is health, but the 6 is also time and space. And getting to that space of health is like a time and space kind of thing. 7 is your place in the universe, and it's partnerships, but it's also guardians and guides, because it changes over time. The 8th house is power, and we have it as legacy and taxes and things like that. The 9th house is education, and the 9 is always sort of the teacher and the sage. So the 9 is pretty clear throughout the age. 10 is career. But the 10 is also like the upper octave of like an enhanced 1. You know, it's like the 1 at another level. And then when you get to 11, the 11th house is society, but the 11 is the master number. So it's the 2, but in ancient Egypt, the 2 doesn't really exist, because as soon as you have 2 things looking at each other, there has to be a third thing observing that there's 2. So it immediately jumps to 3. And when you get to the 12, that's the 3 already. That's creative. And it's also the 12, which is their system is based on 12. So 12 is the God house. And then through the ages, that God house is described by whatever constellation is in that house. And so therefore, all of the other houses are described by whatever sign is in that house. And as we trip through these different ages, the description of these different houses is nuanced. And for example, I just got done working on all the fours. So during the Piscean age, the fourth house is, what is it again? The fourth house?
Cancer.
It's
Cancer. I'm so like tapped into it being
you've removed it.
right. I'm so tapped into what it is for Gemini or for Aquarius that I'm completely keep losing it. So Cancer in the fourth house is self-motivated. It's creating this house out of mud, creating its own, like making its own way, making its own house, like creating it in himself. So if you think of the scarab pushing that ball of dung, it's making its own house. It's facing it towards the direction of the sun. It's catching all the best sun rays. Your house is individual, right? So when you get to the age of Aquarius, that fourth house space is Gemini. And so all the houses are twinsies. They're like all the same, that our houses are more the same than different. And we could almost like track when we got into the Aquarian age by when our houses started being cookie cutter houses and when they started being all the same.
Wow.
So that's just one example.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Patrick,
It's really
your
something
thoughts?
to know.
I like that connection. Just hearing you speak about that again, Julie, it reminds me a lot of that the houses, or that the eras in their own way have their own birth chart. And that is what creates
Right.
a unique set of 12
That's
houses.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
each era in and of itself, almost in a way, at the start of its era, a birth chart is created, and
Right.
that populates those 12 houses that informs that going forward for the duration of that era, which it's kind of cool, kind of a cool way to look at it. For me, I love the numerology connection.
I did too. I
To
love
the
that.
12 houses. I also really love that, because Julie, to jump on to build off of what Julie said, Julie, we have to pause and go, wait, what's house 4 again? And we go, okay, Cancer, because that's what we've assigned it.
Yeah.
But that's been slowly stripped away in most astrological systems, not just sidereal. That idea that house 4 has to be inherently linked forevermore intrinsically to Cancer is kind of being discarded, because house 4 really in and of itself, if you think of numerology, it's stability. 4 is a stable number, and
Correct.
house 4 really is the segment of the playing field of life that really speaks to our roots and the realm of our roots. And so I can see that connection very much, because while we may not have a stable upbringing or stable roots, it's kind of where it's supposed to be. One ideally would think that where we come from and what is taking place in house 4 in all of our lives would be where we come from, would ideally be a stable place. And there may not be those things, because maybe there are planets there activating different sets of circumstances. But I look at the 12 houses very much as the playing field of life. It's the 12 equal 30-degree segments of life that kind of let us pinpoint specific realms of our life that some of the astrological things happening as above might be most concentrated. So we can be feeling the shifts, and I do think we do feel the shifting cosmos overhead in every area of our life. But there are times, like if you really want to drill it down, that's where, to me, the houses become really important. It's like, okay, well, the sun is in Aquarius right now, or right now the sun is in Pisces, but which house is that falling into? And that could be, you're going to be feeling that sun and Pisces energy across the board, but it's going to be the hottest in whatever house that's happening in that moment. So to me, it's very neutral. It's a very neutral space. It's 12 segments of life. And then we look to the cosmos and see what's actually happening in the cosmos.
Okay. I have a question, but Robin, I'd like to get your feedback as well. And then
My feedback is I absolutely love the numerology. I agree with Patrick too, and Julie. I tell you what, I just started a chart like yesterday. I've been working on it. I'm on house 7, I think. And I feel like I want to incorporate this instead, like this way, the way that Julie was just saying it. It just makes a lot of sense to me. I love it.
what I was going to ask is there, when we have the houses and we have the characteristics of the houses, how about when it comes to opposing energy? You know, when we look from the ascending to the descending, from the IC to the MC, and just all of that, would we read it any differently? Probably not, right?
No, it would be.
I don't.
I kind of see like opposing as more as awareness.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
the awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather
I like the mirroring.
the wording as being oppositional, because that just sets us up for fighting, right?
Agreed.
That is such a Piscean age thing. So awareness is that I have full view of you.
Right.
I can see the whole of you. I stand in a different place, in a different perspective, but I can see all of you. So there's awareness.
It's definitely it's an area where I think if we are going to start introducing things to astrology that are not visible in the night sky, right? The houses make a lot of sense, because it's like, well, okay, this is happening in the night sky. Where is this going to play out? Where are we feeling it in our life? And so it doesn't not make sense to be able to create something like a 12-fold system that kind of let us, ideally, basically the premises is that the 12 houses hold space for every single situational thing that can happen in life. It's the playing field. And so I like, if we're going to have something that takes that on, that you can actually, I think you should be able to look at it. If we're going to construct something, I think you should be able to look at it and see some mirroring. So if house 1 is yourself and all things related to the self, then I think that it's great that the mirror, the opposite, house 7, is all about the other, and all about you and the other, or if you're going to look at house 2, then I think you're looking at what's the mirror of house 2. Again, house 2 would be house 8, right? So your resources, what you have in your control, what's available to you for your life right now, your body, your financial status, all the things that are resources, is house 2. But house 8 really speaks to cycles and what is not yours and what does come
other
to
people's
the end,
resources,
and other people's,
that they might offer you, or they might leave you.
Yeah. So it's like what you hold and what other people hold, or what you hold and what you might become, what you may no longer be holding on to. So you can see that working around the wheel, just traditionally, that mirroring makes a ton of sense. And it still makes a ton of sense even when you introduce the numerology. It actually makes more sense when you introduce the numerology. Yeah. Because it's more primal. The numerology is, there's more of a base primal sort of all-encompassing thing when we start thinking about math
and math doesn't lie.
It actually just makes a lot more sense.
It does.
So if we were to strip the numbers, how would that affect the houses? Because we still have the characteristics, but if we were to strip the numbers down,
I think the numbers have everything to do with it.
Yeah, you have to keep the numbers.
When you take the numbers and you take them symbolically, then I can almost visualize those numbers in their shapes and how they fit together.
Right.
And if you look at other house systems that are old, right, because it's not always been the precedent that house 1 is self and house 2 is, resources. There's other examples of houses that are like the gates of gates of Hades and the upper world, and like there's all these different, the house of the goddess, different cultures have named these house realms different things, but the numerology still works. When you look to see if the number works, the numerology still works, which is interesting, because that's what makes me feel like the numerology is probably more, it's probably the seed, and then we're having different cultures and different peoples
interpreting it in their own language,
in
their own culture.
Yeah.
And that's, where we get the crab instead of the scarab, because it's the taking of symbols and making them your own.
Yeah.
Making them understandable to your culture.
Well, the houses that we know, they're all westernized, because it's
exactly
for everyday living in this kind of life, Western life.
Right.
I was just going to ask something, and of course, it slipped my mind.
Right away, I written it down.
What's that?
You got to ask right away, or you got to write it down.
But I don't want to
people
interrupt.
are so rude, and they just speak.
I don't want to interrupt.
Because we know we're going to lose it if we don't.
Because then I don't want anyone to lose their train of thought while they're speaking too. Okay. When we were talking before going online, we spoke about the ages. Now I remember what I was going to say. Let me just say it. Is there, have you, Julie, I'm going to pick on you specifically. Have you created a chart for this current year? Our current era?
Oh, for the current era? For the Aquarian age?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick, shaking your head. Robin, have you done it? Just to see.
No, but I could. I should.
I'm shaking my head because Julie has.
Yeah.
I'm going, yes, she has.
Julie does.
Julie's blazing the era path for us all.
Oh, yeah. She definitely is.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I know in our previous conversation, we were briefly talking, which led us to go into creating this episode of Astrological Houses, is what year are we in? Are we in the era of Pisces? Are we in Aquarius? Julie's like, we're in Aquarius.
Yeah.
And so when someone wants to use the houses or just create a chart for that era, how would you guide that person? What are some of the things that you would tell that person? Like, okay, I want to know for this era, what has been, well, we know what has been going on, but what's the direction that we could see this energy going towards? How would you recommend someone to have a starting point and to create a chart based on?
You put Aquarius in the 12th house.
Okay. So you start in the 12th house.
You can start anywhere, really, but to know that Aquarius is in the 12th house, and then you've just shifted everything back one sign, just to give it its new character. So God is very spontaneous. The idea of divinity is like this instant. It's the thought that comes to you. It's that moment of inspiration. It's that, that instant knowing. And it goes along with our culture, which is now everything is instant. You can talk to each other. We can do everything instantly.
I thought you put that in the first guide. You put that in there, didn't you?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. It's in there.
Yeah. And so our physical body, we move like a school of fish. Our physical body, we've become like everyone else. We wear the same clothes, we do the same things. Our days are very similar. Our resources are Aries. So
just a second.
Like we're bold with our we are what we do. We're with it's bold. This bold kind of
there's a lot of energy around them.
Right. And the subtleness of if a person has resources or if they don't, like there's this wave of energy. People know instantly whether you have resources or whether you don't. and it, it becomes like an air. And, communication is bold and stubborn.
Mm.
And I don't know, like we get to say whatever we want to say.
Yeah.
So Taurus in the house of communication is really, very stubborn and bold, and we take our side and we're not going to budge. Like so many people don't want to budge, but and then our housing, everything is the same. Gemini. Gemini.
Are there
You're basically
times,
reading
are there times, so it's all good, Patrick. Are there times where certain parts of that chart for the Aquarian era becomes a little bit more stronger? Like there's more of an influence of houses 5 through 7 or 8 through 10. Is there a way that
I don't know.
can work with the houses?
I don't know. Do we do that with the other parts? Do we do that with the age of Pisces?
Oh, that I can't answer.
I mean, I would say yes.
People break up the charts, right? They have the upper and the lower, the conscious, subconscious as above, so below.
I'd have to think about that.
Okay.
I have to think about that.
I think if you run the era like a birth chart, right? If you were to say, okay, this is essentially the start of the era, so we would run it like it's a birth chart to get our picture, then you would look at the current transits, the planetary transits that are happening right now on top of that chart, just like we do for humans, right? We run our birth charts and then we look at what's happening right now in real time and activating or engaging with our own natural birth chart. So the same would apply to an era. You could see the era as a whole thematically when you run the era's birth chart, which is what Julie's done, but then and created. But then you would want to look to what's happening right now, transit wise, and say, okay, like right now it is, if it's the age of Aquarius, then right now in real time we've got Pluto and Capricorn. That means something. So that's where the activations, and that's where we're going to have all the ebbs and flows and the nuance, because the age of Aquarius is going to last for a long, long time. So it's going to see lots of different activations.
Right.
I asked that because I was looking at my solar return chart. I have my solar return chart from last year versus this year. And so there's some houses where the energy was very prominent and some other houses that weren't as prominent. And this year, because they're moving around, I'm seeing where the emphasis is. So that's why I was asking for the Aquarian age if there's going to be more of an emphasis on politics, war, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like your birth chart gives you the themes of your life. And then your day-to-day transits and your returns give you the insight into, like Julie's done so much work around Saturn cycles. Like the Saturn cycle gives you an idea. There's going to be all kinds of Saturn cycles during the age of Aquarius. So those would mean something.
Yeah. I think the bigger outer planets, the generational planets, will have more of a say in what, like those are the bigger statements for the era, because they move so slowly. Correct. And they don't stay. They don't come back to a place for, it takes a long time to get back to a place. Like I think us getting a second chance at, I would say renewing our contract of independence from kings, renewing our contract with keeping the union and keeping people free, and renewing our contract that we will not tolerate fascism with Uranus in Aries, where it was during 84 years ago. So I think that having all those things happening at the same time is this renewal of contract towards a more humane world. And that's part of the harmony that comes with the Aquarian age. The Aquarian age is harmony. And we are going to have all these things that are instant. And we're going to be doing things differently. And there's no room for totalitarianism in an age when, we have all this spontaneity, and, the cosmic consciousness is right here, and we can hear it, and the kids know, and they're using it, and they know that the universe is conscious, therefore we are conscious, not the other way around. We don't have to search for intelligent life, because of course there's intelligent life out there. If we're here and we're so little and minute, then that's the standard for everything.
Yeah.
Because we aren't the standard for everything. We're just a small example of what's out there.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about the star card. And there's a particular card from the Guild Tarot that represents a star that is very beautiful. It shows promise. It shows hope for the future and taking it to a higher level.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the Aquarian age.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it. Oh.
I'm sorry, we're talking at the same time. I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, no.
Unbelievable.
Oh no.
Go ahead, Patrick. It'll trigger.
For playback's sake, I think what you just said, Julie, needs to be underscored to put into your book somehow. Yes. I'm hearing it loud and clear that this needs to be clear right now, that for the eras, because it's a great question that you asked, Amy, and this is stuff that's not getting talked about right now. So that question of how, if you're looking at the birth chart of an era, you're getting the flavor of the era, but where can we plan for and see hits or highs and lows within that era? I think that answer that you just gave, Julie, around the outer planets, because that is being where the closer planets are more relevant to our human day-to-day life. We feel them. But like Pluto is a great example, because Pluto just moved into Capricorn out of Sagittarius. It's been in Sagittarius for 16 years, and it's not going to be back in Sagittarius for like 250 years. So, but it will be. So like, how many times is Pluto and Sag going to get that opportunity in the Aquarius era? There's only going to be a handful of those. And so that means something.
165 years or something.
Yeah. So
that will happen, a dozen times or so, maybe.
So I think that's important, right? Because Mercury is going to be in Sagittarius about 1 trillion times during the time of the age of Aquarius.
Right.
But Pluto being in Sagittarius is only going to happen maybe a handful, a dozen times. So that could, to answer your question, Amy, be where we should be looking for highs and lows. And that is uncharted conversation. And I think that deserves like bold underscore highlight, because that really good question just gave a really good answer that just fired up all kinds of like antenna going on. That's information that people are going to need to know that, people are going to be interested in that. When we stop spending, I get it, we're humans and we spend most of our time in our individual lives and wanting to know our story and our cosmic highs and lows, but like, we're going into this age of Aquarius, and we're already starting to see how it's becoming more enlightened and awakened. And I think we're going to start looking at broader strokes and bigger picture things.
And we're getting away from the idea of believing.
Right.
Yes.
And into the knowing. And the only way to get to the place of knowing is to be confronted with lies and lies and lies and lies until we go, wait, I don't believe you. I need to have proof. You need to have this to have proof. Because I'm not going to just believe you, because I know that there's something different. And that when we get to that place of knowing, we lose that comfort of having the experts tell us what the truth is. But we have to do the work ourselves. And
it's all about the age of knowing.
Right. The age of knowing will give, will take away our cushy place where we've been able to have experts do all the work and just tell us what it is. Tell us the answer. You know, you have to find your own answers. They're not going to be in the book anymore.
That seems like what the pandemic ended up doing. We ended up having to do a lot of, we're doing a lot of stuff ourselves. It's like, even when we're on hold and we have to now do more, we have to do more phone calls. We have to do more of this in the mundane world to just follow up on things. It's like, why am I doing all this work? They work for this company or whatnot. They should be doing the legwork. So all of a sudden, we're finding ourselves having to be more involved in, getting information, getting things that we need, or even creating it ourselves because it's not there.
Right. You can't even go to the food store and just get the food that you ate when you were a kid because it's not good for you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You have to read the label.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know what you're putting in your body.
Yeah.
You've got to do the research to find out what you need. So
I think, Patrick, too, you hit a really good point. And Julie, I can't remember who said it first. The outer planets. I think that is just so important because of the generations.
Yeah.
I think all of us here in our panel, or Hollywood Squares, we come from different generations. And so I think it's now, since I'm at this point where I'm like, you guys really need to look back at our influences, the people that we were raised by, listen, the knowing, the understanding, pay attention. I think
you can't look at the past from what you know now because they didn't have what we have now.
Right.
And they had things that we didn't have. They have knowledge that we didn't have. And it goes both ways. Yeah. Because they all knew how to live off the land, or they knew how they had little tools that they had. That's one of the wonderful things about historical reenacting that I used to do, is that you would get a chance to find out about these things that you don't have in your modern life that were used, that are wonderful, that you can bring back in. And, I think today, we can learn a lot from all the generations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the generations need to listen. We can learn, but you guys, are you ready to listen to hear about our?
They need to know. They'll listen.
If they,
And we need to listen. I mean, and that's something, if I've got a 27-year-old son, so I'll pick on him and his peer group for a minute. It's interesting because I'm learning. I've always been what I would call an ally, right? I've always been ahead in terms of the causes happening at the time. Growing up, I was an ally. It got me into lots of trouble in high school. I was always that person that was, at the end of the day, I didn't believe that a human being is a human being is a human being at its core. And so whether somebody was, I have distinct memories of people being bullied because they had Down syndrome when I was in middle school. And while nobody went to action around that, not even the teachers. And I went to action at that, but the thing is that these 27, like my son, I'll just pick on him specifically. Like he is, and his group, they're very, cause specific. They're very thoughtful and sensitive, and the language, I feel like they're changing the language every day. Like trying to keep up with the right language is sometimes a challenge. And I'm like, give it to me. I'm an ally. Like I want to keep up. I'm not even pushing back, but it's a real challenge. And then I'm also seeing that, you've got to learn. I don't want to not keep up with the language updates and the changes that they are bringing, because they are the future. But I'm telling him on a regular basis, as we're empty nesting, he's building up his voice for communities and for causes, but like get him to reply to a text back in a timely manner. And that just base level, maybe, awareness to thoughtfulness or consideration, while there's no malicious intent, it's just not always there.
Yeah.
It's just not always there. So I'm like, you want, in need and are requiring, you're corrective, like you'll correct language when it's being used incorrectly in 2024. You're really pushing the boundaries and wanting to break the ceilings and have the arms wide open. But at the same time, like if we text you, maybe reply back.
You're interested.
Maybe, and I'm picking on him because I know he would let me pick on him. But that is something that it's like, yes, we need to listen, but they should listen too. Because to what you're saying, like we've all been there too, and there's a lot of different generational stuff that shouldn't be discarded, No,
there's been a lot of work done.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of work done. Every generation has contributed towards a better human being.
Yeah. And I do think you see the older generations, there's always an undercurrent. We're navigating as we get older. Like we always have to be mindful of the trigger of resentment or of not being, nobody makes you feel old until you're around young people, and they just make you feel old just by being in their presence, And so there's always that generation. I saw it with my grandfather, who was like looking at my parents as like, oh, those, they're, and now I see it with myself in those groups. It seems like the older we get, the more inclined we are to sort of, when I was a kid, I walked to school in the snow in 25 feet of snow, but there's truth in it, so there's this degree of thoughtfulness that I hope stays universal, or will be a path or a map for us. If thoughtfulness was the map, that would be great.
Right. For sure.
Robin, how do you feel about the generations?
Well, I was just thinking about that. Exactly the same thing. My son just turned 29 on Monday. And so I don't know, in reviewing everything for today, I thought to look in his chart about 6, I think. Just, what he's really doing. Then I figured a lot out. I said, oh, that makes sense. But I was just thinking about that when Patrick was talking about that. It just took me kind of back. A couple of years, not that far.
I have no children, but place that I do readings at, we just got a new reader, and she does psychic readings and healing. And she's young. I don't know how old she is, but she's young. But she is very bright. She's very open, and she asks questions. And she shared an experience of a reading that she had that she felt didn't go good. And she didn't really know what to make out of it. So we were talking about this. Hold on one second. And she's like, I appreciate that. She really wanted to get a different perspective. Someone who has done different kinds of readings, I do tarot, not psychic, but to give a perspective of, how do you feel if you come across a reading that just didn't go across as well as you did? You let it go. I told her, just let it go. You move on. You'll deal with these feelings, but you learn from it, And so there are other people that I meet that are young, and I just like when they ask questions.
Because they want to know. That's wanting to know.
That's
They'll learn that way.
And if the generation can be placed in an environment where they can be groomed and be inspired to be really into what they're exploring, instead of like, oh, I don't know if this is the right thing or whatnot. Because there's also frustration too in the younger generation. And I think it's important that us next generations above, we're there to support them, because they probably feel that they don't have the support that they need and whatnot. So, You know,
to be a young person in the beginning of the age of Aquarius, and to be all of our ages in the beginning of the age of Aquarius, that's where there's this connection to astrology, because this is such an example of the transition out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius theme playing out.
Yeah.
And it's not that we haven't had generational themes playing out with all kids and adults and millennia, but like there is definitely a shifting that's happening, that's visible everywhere, right now in regards to that. So, which I do think is right on brand for Age of Aquarius.
Sure. Everything's right on time.
Yeah.
Everything
is everything. That's good.
Laura just put this comment. I don't know if it was a question when we were talking about the planets and stuff. Any mainstream astrologers brush off outer planets?
They tend to use them more. I see most of them being like collective. It's more a collective energy.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't. I mean, it really just depends. I mean, every astrologer is so different. Like, I get a lot of flack all the time for not being an astrologer that's constantly talking about birth charts. But I'm much more interested in daily transits. So it doesn't mean that I don't love birth charts. I love birth charts, but it could just be that specific astrologer's, personal synthesis of those planets,
I can't see how you can do astrology with just the 7 planets.
I don't either, yeah.
Except that's how it was done for most of the time.
that way.
Yes. And the tarot decks, the decans, they only go up to the 7 planets, with the exception of the one deck that I have by Attila, who brings in all 10 planets.
See them until
you couldn't see them
fairly recently.
Right.
Maybe that was the beginning of the Aquarian age, is when we were able to see.
Yeah,
maybe
with a telescope.
Because the technology came, and then our perceptions changed, and
now we know that there's a 9th planet out there that's 20,000 year cycle.
Yeah.
And how do we read that one? We don't really know exactly where it is. I don't think. I'm not sure. They must know exactly where it is just by basically,
I'm sure,
by the gravitational pull or whatever. If somebody knows where that is, that would be interesting.
Somebody knows.
Somebody knows.
Somebody knows.
I'm just not telling.
I bet the Egyptians knew right where it was.
Somebody knew. Well, the scientists know, but they wouldn't think of wondering about it symbolically.
It's
Could
funny
you
though.
imagine? We're right on line, Patrick.
It is. We are. You and I think we fire on the same thing.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
I love that, actually.
Is there a chance?
Where's your Mercury?
Now we're literally saying the same words at the same time.
We're channeling the same thing.
I'm going to say it right now. Is there a chance that the houses could actually expand at some point? 13, 14 houses. Could that energy, the characteristics?
You would want to do that?
Why do we want to complicate things?
I know, true.
I don't think I'll be doing that. I don't think I'll be doing that.
That's another deck, Julie.
That's another lifetime.
Oh my gosh.
I'll come back and do that.
I mean, the houses are so interesting, right? Because the houses are not something you can go out and see. We were talking about this before we went live. I think it's really interesting to look at the origins and try to keep pulling back those onion peel levels of how did we get to houses? Where did we get to this construct? Because it is, the houses are a construct. And I can imagine that people started that they wanted to figure out, okay, well, if this full moon is happening in the sky overhead and we look at that as an omen of sorts, where, like, somebody said, okay, but it's happening more profoundly in one specific area of life than another. And I don't know who did that. It feels very, to me, it feels very like philosopher, great thinker, mathematician. It would have to be a mathematician as well, somebody who could literally look up at the night sky and see those divisions.
There's consistency with the moon, that the full moon will rise when the sun goes down. It's not going to change that much. The first quarter moon is always above this, at the horizon when the sun is going down. There's always this very stable, predictable lunar thing that happens. And that was probably the more important thing. up until
Right.
the Romans came along and had to have the sun be something.
In Hellenistic astrology, like I've got the chart up. I just pulled it up because I was so curious, because a lot of people think anything beyond the 1900s is ancient history, but it's not. Right? We go back to Hellenistic astrology is really kind of considered in some ways like the ancient astrology, and what we are proposing with True Sidereal is that it's really not. There's actually more astrology before the Hellenistic astrology than there is currently from Hellenistic to today.
Yes.
There's thousands and thousands of years more. But if you look at the Hellenistic astrology, houses, house 1 was called the house of the helm, house 2 was the gate of Hades, house 3 was the house of the goddess, house 4 was the subterranean house 5 was the house of good fortune. And you can kind of see, if you do that research,
that kind of feels like the hours, and
yes,
it feels like the houses.
It feels evolutionary to something, and that's why I'm more hesitant to be like, it's just the houses came out of Greco-Roman stuff. It feels too evolutionary. It feels like they took something else and they made something. So I'm really curious though as to what's before, because it's really hard to find much. The lineage of houses is not the easiest thing to research, so I'm very, very curious. It's why I like Julie's associations to the numerology.
He's looking up at it for right now.
We'll find it.
Yeah, we do need a lineage. I do think we need to think about that a little bit, because it is the aspect of astrology that is a construct, and so we should know why it's there and how it got there if it's a construct.
Coming from to know where
yeah.
Let's get
and
to
then
know
we can decide. Yeah, we can decide, do we keep it? Do we discard it? Do we evolve it? Do we not? But like, we should know where it came from.
You were saying, Julie, that the houses originated through Egypt, or you feel
the hours came from Egypt. The 12 hours. That's an Egyptian thing. So the 12 hours, the calendar, the 365-day calendar, that's all Egyptian.
Everything is Egyptian.
Everything is Egyptian, and then everything is African. It's that old.
And if you look at the 12,
what we see in Egypt was already there, and this is just a scratch of the surface. And what we're looking through is the keyhole of the Greeks, who had insight into what was going on in Egypt. And that's all we have, is this little keyhole. And then we have that all mixed in with Western culture bias, and to scrape that away to try to see what is actually there is a challenge.
So we're still, we being those who practice astrology and whatnot, we're still, like Patrick was saying, we're still discovering things. We're peeling the layers. There's still more.
Back more skin.
There is so much. Even this is where I will say I will give the feather to the Western astrology is being such a positive, because I really truly believe the positive in freezing the night sky and locking us into a system, if there's one, it's that, I mean, we have thousands of books written in so many different languages that have yet to even be translated, and that are still being translated today. There's so much, like the whole sign houses, for example. That's just one approach to giving a whole sign to a house. That didn't even the writings about that didn't really even come forth till the mid 80s. And it really wasn't until the last decade that they've even been adopted. And now people are like, whole sign houses are the way to go. They're the oldest house system. That just came to light relatively recently in the last 25-30 years. And so to translate those writings, which are already, like Julie said, writings that were through a keyhole of somebody else's lens, right? You have to put that into context.
And translated from Kemet to Greek to Latin. And this is why scholars knew how to read Latin and Greek.
Yes.
in order
And
to
then
rebuild scroll.
and now they've sat around for 2,000 years, and we're finally getting to the point where some of that information is finally getting revealed.
This is
But we
where
can't.
AI will come in handy, because if AI
Yeah.
can read all this stuff for us and translate
Yes.
it,
Mm,
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I don't know. Oh, I don't know about
I
AI
know.
well,
because of where it's
AI is not going to be any
No.
worse than somebody's bias, somebody's misogynistic bias that we might have gotten from the Renaissance.
It's true.
You
My
know,
concern is they
Yeah.
could get it wrong.
oh, they could.
Yeah.
And
Just like they have.
Yeah, they've already
Right.
we have to
got us wrong
strike
anyway.
against the reality
Mhm.
Yeah.
But we
that
need
is,
to find out.
yeah. We have to
I
strike
just think,
against reality, talk to the guides, talk to your inner voice,
yeah.
and try to rebuild what was already there. And it's probably going to be so simple that, like, of course, that would be it. It's what
Yeah.
we've always known. That kind of, it'll be one of those aha moments.
Mhm.
But I
Like,
think going back to the numerology for a second, if we start there with our questions and go, okay, what's the lineage of houses? Well, what do we know about houses? If we take off all the dressing of meaning to each house, what do we know? Well, there's 12 of them pretty consistently. So what do we start to associate with 1 through 12? There are meanings associated
yeah,
to 1
there
through 12 numerologically, and then we can start to see correspondences. Where does 12 surface? And like Julie said, the hours in Egypt, 12 hours were really important in Egypt. And you also have 24 hours in a day. You have 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness. A birth chart is very much 6 houses that are visible, right?
we're
And
still
6
only getting
houses
half,
that are not.
right?
Right. 6 houses that are not visible. So in what calculation could we get to those 24 hours? And maybe they were not 24. Why do we have to have a 24-hour day in Egypt? Or maybe they had a 12-hour
I
day
have
in
a
Egypt.
calendar on my phone.
Right.
Had 12 hours of the day and 12 hours of the night. So they did have a 24-hour day. That's where
Okay,
we
they
came
did.
from.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. But,
But
so like look for the 12 theme.
what I noticed was that our analog clock has these hours, and they're just like the hours of the Egyptian hours. They're in the place of the Egyptian hours. And it's actually like a placement in the sky. Like, it's always going to be like the 6th hour is down below on the bottom.
Right.
And it's always going to be there.
Which
The
would
5
be
and the
house
6 are
4.
on the bottom. And so, like, the 4th house that we think of as the home is actually the 5th hour.
Right.
And it's the dinner hour, or it's the hour where we wake up in the early morning. It's the time when we are for sure going to be home. And it's when we come back home again. So it's, I'm just really enjoying, like, going through it and looking at it. Like here it's been hiding in our analog clock all this time. And who decided to do that? And it's like, and I'm like, oh.
I keep my clock at 24 hours. So it's 15:54. I just, for some reason, I've been doing that for probably the last, at least over 5 years. I've always stuck to military time. I don't know why, and I like it because at least, actually, I think this is part of it because 3 o'clock is going to be 3:55 is going to be 15:55 instead of 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 3
Right,
a.m.
you're dealing with the afternoon.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at it right now. It's like can you do a military time placement with the charts? What's that?
I don't know. I suppose you could. I guess that's your book, Amy.
I don't know if that would change anything. Probably not. It's just the time is the time. It's just that I'm using 24-hour time.
Yeah.
And when 24 hours comes, it's midnight.
Right.
And then we go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, then 6 a.m. What's that, Robin?
I have a Kemetic calendar on my phone. Not that I use it, but
What is that?
Kemetic. It's Egyptian.
Is that 24-hour?
It's just a daily. It goes with their 10 days.
Yeah,
Okay.
the 36 10-day weeks. Yeah.
It has all that in there and everything's named and like all the dates and stuff. I've had it on here for a while. It has daylight savings time in there though too.
Well,
in
they would
here.
have done that.
It's in here.
No.
I know, right?
There's your
That's
flag.
right.
There's
That's
your
a
red flag.
flag.
Well, they didn't
That's
have
the
minutes.
flag.
They didn't have minutes and seconds like
Yeah.
we do.
St.
Yeah.
Patrick's and
Things
everything
weren't-
else in here.
And
So-
that's another
On
thing.
their agenda. Mm-hmm.
How did they calculate the difference of well, I guess they did it by season, but when
if there was the daylight hours difference, if the hours were different, daylight hours were different, it was still 12. They would still divide it into 12. So if you had a shorter
Interesting.
day, it would
Yeah.
still have, because I think it was more about the placement of the sun. You know,
Okay,
Well, because
placement.
the casting of the shadow, right?
Yeah, like
It was
measure
measured
it.
by shadow.
Like-
Yeah.
Eastern, and then as it came to midheaven and it was in its decline, it
mhm,
was more about that. Like
okay,
the first hour was in that first decline. So it would be like our 8th house. So it'd be in that decline where it's not going to be above the horizon for very much longer. So it begins its journey there, and then
Yeah.
it goes down through and comes back up again
okay.
and finishes at the top.
So much of this is like, if you look at this, the chart, like this center line as the horizon,
Yeah.
Right.
then you can kind of get to some of these meetings by the sun, just the sun's journey, because it's like by the time it's over here, like it's inactive, and then you get to setting, and
Right.
then this used to be house 6 used to kind of be, it's got a lot of historical information around being a house of bad fortune, but that was because all the light has been lost.
Oh,
Right. It's
It's
the
weird.
shadow.
Yeah.
It's the
We are-
shadow. That sixth
Right.
house is the 3rd hour, and it's the shadow.
Right. We're now, it's
Yes.
under the darkness,
Right.
and the sun has succumbed to the horizon line. And
Right.
so, but then you move into the lowest point, and then you get into these like roots, and you
Right.
start this
Then you explode
ascent,
up.
this
And there's
ascent back
yeah.
up,
The ascent, right?
So,
So the
um,
descent and then the ascent into heaven.
Yeah.
The
and then
whole
and the
ritual.
right, and the culmination, right? The culmination point meant something, which is usually where we see house 10 and the achievements, the
Right.
culminating sun every day versus the lowest part of the sun
Right.
being,
Right.
the midnight hour, so
Right.
so
That
interesting.
place, and it all has its
Mhm.
symbolism.
Yeah.
I
Right.
remembered what I was going to ask
Yay.
40 minutes ago.
Okay. What is it?
The different house systems. It's probably irrelevant. It's probably irrelevant at
I
this
don't
point.
know very much about the different house systems.
There's a lot of them. I know a lot about them.
And I actually contacted Julie. I contacted you, Julie, about which house system did you use? And I think you said something like, I used the Egyptian house system, or you used no system. Because we have the equal, we have the whole, we have some of the names.
Placidus, and
I can't pronounce some
There's-
of these Campanus, I think is
yeah,
one.
yeah.
How much, Robin and Patrick, how much do you know of these different houses, systems? And
Ones. I was going to ask you about like the Vedic and stuff. Was it similar? to what we're
Vedic is
talking about?
square.
Is it square?
Yeah, it's like a
No, I didn't get it.
rectangular with a lot of different boxes.
Boxes. They have numbers though, right? It's just all numbers.
Yeah, I don't know how
I
to
don't know
do
anything
that.
about it.
At the end of the day, every house system ultimately, I always am striving for like, what's the universalness first? I always go like, where are these systems universal? Because I automatically start when I start my research is like, okay, it's all been overly influenced by somebody or some peoples by some. So I'm always like, where's the highest octave? It's like my true north. And the thing that's always universal about houses is that they're generally 3 360 degrees. They are, you know, so even if it's not a circle and even if it's a square, it's still accounting for 360 degrees. And they visually may lay it out differently. But the thing with the houses is there's all these different house systems based on all of these different cultures and peoples. Calculating, like, whole sign house system basically is that no matter what, if you were born, when you were born, and if Aquarius was, if the sun was in Aquarius and it landed in your first house, no matter what, the whole first house was always going to be Aquarius. And there was no change. And then all the other signs followed suit. But in sidereal astrology and true sidereal astrology, the reality is we're kind of moving away from all of those different man-made constructs and going, the houses are just 12, 30-degree slices of a pie. And then when you run your chart, the constellations that actually were applicable fall on those things. So like for me,
they might be 2 houses.
Yeah, for me, I've got
2 houses.
I think house 9. Yeah, for me, house 9 has the tail end of it is Scorpio, the middle of it is Libra, and the beginning part of it is Virgo. So for house 9, I have those 3 signs that kind of fell into it. But I have Pluto in I have Uranus in house 9, but it's on the degree of Libra. So when I think of house 9 for myself, I work with house 9 and I work with Libra energy, and I work specifically with the energy of Pluto, because that's really where the activation is. You know, even though there's all these flavors in house 9 for me, that's where there's an activation.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like house, the way that you described it, is almost similar to equal, isn't it? Or equal is the degree system? Or
whole, yes. So whole sign and equal house systems are very similar, but it is a matter of where you determine that start point for the sign and the allowance you get for each. So like some systems you have to have, it's like whatever sign was at 0 degrees, and again you got to remember they're factoring in 30-degree zodiac signs. So this houses like this really only work, all those systems really only thrive because they're dealing with 30-degree zodiac signs. It kind of gets sort of very dismantled very quickly when you start actually working with just the constellation sizes.
Yeah, because I figured that would be something important when you're interpreting the houses. Which system are you using? You know, and with true sidereal, it seems like it's just open to whoever the person is doing the reading. If they want to use no system and just stick to the houses as they are.
Well, with true sidereal, the actual constellation size is going to be overlaid outside the houses. So you should look to what constellation is in that house. And if there's 2 or 3, then you work with the fact that that's the truth.
Yeah, it's kind of like reading cards. You know, when you're reading cards, you have to combine all these energies, and you have to make a statement about it. So, like doing this with astrology is not a big leap.
No, and it's actually more nuanced. Like that's where I think a lot of people that make the switch to true sidereal go, "Oh my gosh, like this is so much more accurate," because house 9 isn't this one sweeping constellation or zodiac sign because of a system that makes it fit that way. It's like in my case, house 9 being flavored by those 3 signs that actually do sort of land in there make a lot of sense. And then when I'm seeing my day-to-day transits, because that's what I'm looking at, I'll look and see like, oh, what's in house 9 right now? And what realm of house 9 is it in? Is it in the Libra part or is it in the Scorpio part? Because there's difference, there's nuance, you know, that's stripped away for the sake of systemization, you know, and with Western.
I know I asked this question and I already forgot the answer. Where does Ophiuchus fall in the house system? It's between Scorpio and Sagittarius.
Yeah.
So it is houses, it goes between house 9 and, between houses 8 and 9? Is that how I would interpret?
It wouldn't necessarily be in a house at all.
No.
Right. No. Scorpio is, it's, you know, right in.
like,
between.
I wish I could pull up my chart or any of our charts to have it as an example.
Okay.
I emailed you,
There,
Amy. I don't know
she's
if
got
you can
something.
see it. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, put it right in front of you. So
Yeah,
see
right.
that outer rim that she's holding up. You can see Ophiuchus right there, and Ophiuchus, that's the black square there on the outer rim. That's the actual constellation
Up here.
size of Ophiuchus.
Got
And
it.
so you can see that
Okay.
because this chart is this your chart, Robin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can see where Robin's chart. I think that's house 12, if I'm looking at that correctly.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Robin's chart, house 12 is house 12 is house 12. It's 30 degrees. It's perfect 30 degrees, but the constellation sizes are different. So you can see part of Robin's 12th house has Ophiuchus in it in its entirety, and you can see that it also has Scorpio, and it looks like Scorpio might be in it in its entirety too.
I'll be right back.
It is.
I'll be
Yeah.
right back. I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
So because the constellations are, you always have 360 degrees, you always have 12 equal slices, but the constellations are varying in size. So when
Right.
those get placed on top, you're going to always have some degree of overlap or sharing.
That
So
would have
you're never,
happened even with 30-degree signs,
yeah,
that would have always happened because everything is always moving and shifting. It doesn't lock into its special little house.
No, I get a lot of people who ask me, like, is there a 13th house now that there's a 13th
No.
sign?
Yeah.
And there's not, because the houses are the houses of the houses, and they're 30 degrees.
Exactly.
So they take up, the houses take up the whole circle, but then the constellations take up the whole circle. But since they're in varying sizes, they're going to take up, they're overlapping. Yeah. Yeah.
They move and they overlap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something that, as people discover true sidereal, it's something like, okay, we now have a 13th sign. Now, how do I understand this to integrate it into?
And a lot of them were taught that.
It doesn't need to have a numerology. It doesn't need to have a numerology because it's not a house. It's a sign.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And
it's just like if something cataclysmic happened and the Earth suddenly, not the Earth, all the planets that travel the 13 ecliptic constellations overhead, if for some reason they found a new path and they landed like a whole path up, and we ended up with all new constellations that they traveled through, and we ended up with, let's just say, 22 constellations that they traveled through, you would still take those 22 varied constellations and lay it down over 12 house.
And you'd have to think of a new story.
Yeah. And I hope I'm not here for it.
do we all want to go through this again?
Yeah.
Our life? I think once is enough,
This particular life?
The mundane. I should separate that. The mundane life. One time only is good, but everything's out around that, we'll see.
I have a love-hate relationship with the houses, because I feel like the houses, I see it a lot with people with tarot. Like, if you are not doing it in a thoughtful way, people will see the death card and they freak out, and then they abdicate their personal authority, and they're like, oh my gosh, somebody's going to die in my life. And it's, they hand over all authority to that. And the houses, in a way, run the risk of this, right? Because we can say, oh, well, the sun was in Aquarius in your first house, so then that means that every bit of work you ever do with the sun in Aquarius is you're going to relate it back always to the themes of the first house. And if you're not careful, if you're not intentionally working with that, and the thing is the sun in Aquarius is going to literally affect the whole picture. You should just use that to empower you, and not to disempower you.
When I do readings, if I see something that's just on the heavier side, it's just more or less like it's a wake-up call. Just be more mindful, be aware of situations. I would never say anyone, this is something bad. That's not how I read the tarot, or even with astrology. These are all life lessons. They're steps. I feel like the 12 houses could also be considered steps along our life, and those 12 steps get repeated in various ways. There are some houses, some steps where, you get a
Are more
stellium.
challenging.
Yeah, the
Right.
stellium, and they're just locked in this, and it's fascinating to see some of these charts that there's heavy in just one house, and they feel like they a friend of mine says, "I feel like I've been cursed. I just cannot get out of it. It's in my chart." And it's like, well, look, this is your blueprint. Okay, but it's how you manage it. It's how you go through this. You don't have to literally, stick to it in that sense. You can change the direction of how these things go when challenges come. You use these strengths that you have and these other signs, planetary placements. You use that to your advantage to overtake or take control of some of these negative aspects. But yeah,
Totally.
it doesn't have to be seen so literally.
Yeah.
It's you do what you take with it or what you see of it. Once you leave the table or once you've done meeting the astrologer, it's like it's all up to you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
What
The
else?
nature of constructs, I think, right? The nature
Yeah.
of constructs lend themselves to locking, you get locked into it. And it's
Yeah.
like, ooh. It's
Yeah.
like it's a blessing and a curse because they give us parameters and they give us definition and they give us a space to play, but then it's like that space becomes a box.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, anytime you define something, then it's limited.
Yes.
But
And then,
we need definitions as humans. We need to have
We do, right?
definitions so we have meaning and we know what we're doing. And
100%.
we like the stability, but then we get mad. And we break out of it. But,
So true.
and then you got to look at the chart. It's like, why am I so upset at this time? What's going on? And then you look, it's like, okay,
No,
it's Saturn or Mars or whatever. It's causing so much tension. What are some other things that we can touch base on about the houses? We did a little bit of history. We covered the 12. That number is going to stick in my head for a while. Not because of the 12 hours and 24, but the way it's broken up.
Did we walk through the 12 numerologically live, or was that just pre?
Did I say it? Did I say
Yes,
it?
I think you said it before.
Did she
Only
say it during the
before?
live?
I don't think you did.
Yeah, I don't think you said it
No,
during
you
the
didn't.
live.
No, because you said one, and I remember I let you speak. I'm like, we need to talk about this when we go live.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did I not? Okay. If I did not say, actually, this is something that came to me quite recently. And while I was working on the workbook and actually talking with Gerald and Jamie, and it just like finally sunk into my head that these houses are numerological, right? And the first house is the 1. It's your body, the 1. And it starts with you. And the 2 is the polarity, the resources, you and the resources. But 2 doesn't really, like in Egypt, 2 doesn't exist unless there's a third thing watching it, and it skips right away to 3. So the 3 is creation, but it's also 3 is also communication because it correlates to Mercury's 3 retrogrades, and the pattern that Mercury makes is a 3. It makes 3 loops during the year. So it's the 3 in communication and creativity. And then the 4 is stability. You can see like a square makes it stable for 4 directions, 4 walls.
East, west.
And then 5 is love, children, art, and it correlates to the 5, which is in Egypt. The 5 is love, and it correlates with the patterns that are created in the orbit of Venus. Every 8 years, it clicks off 5 perfect star points, and it creates the 5-pointed star. And it, all of the things that have to do with love and
Pleasure.
And inspiration. So that's your 5th house. The 6th is time and space. And if you pictured 2 pyramids coming together, the 6 as 2 creative energies coming together, the time and space. 7 is the 3 plus the 4, or the 1 plus the 6, the 1 with time and space. It's a card, it's a number of initiation, but it's also in this house of partnership, which is also called the hours of guardians and guides. So the 7th house isn't just for marriage. And in the Piscean age, Libra is in the 7th house, which is legal marriage. So it has to do with legal partnerships. And as it shifts and changes, that also changes. So sometimes it's guardians, sometimes it's guides, and sometimes it's just the people that you work with. And the 7 can also be open enemies. So it's about initiation.
Okay.
And the 8th house is 8, and that's power.
Yeah.
And the 8 is also for the 8th house for legacy and money, other people's money, and
Inheritance.
and inheritance and wills and taxes. So 8 is power. So I often will just think of 2 squares like a cube, like this bigger power, a bigger stability. And the 9 is the sage and the teacher and the reflection. 9, anything added to 9 becomes itself. So it's a beautiful symbol for higher learning.
Attainment.
Right. And then you get to 10. 10 is the career house, the public image. 10 is the next octave or the next level 1. It's the bigger one, the one that interacts with the world.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. Then you get to 11, which is the master number, but it's also a 2. So you get back to that, skipping right to the 3. You can't have the polarity because it's children and other people's children in the 11th house in society, but really it's all the same thing. We're all family. We're all part of the same family. And then the 12 is the 12th house is the 3. It's the creation. It's the creator. It's the God house, and it's our relationship to the universe in a higher octave. It's the whole circle, again, in the 12.
Can I add on all of that? Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Okay, because when Julie told me this, I literally, I felt like I exploded into like a plume of confetti when Julie told me this a while back, because I love synchronicity, right? And like I said earlier, I love the truths that the truth always comes through one way or the other. And so, for the last 6 years, I've been diving deep into houses and meanings, and I can't stand most of those meanings. And when I was creating my deck, one of the hardest things for creating the deck for me, my deck, was not the art. It was the coming up with I knew I was just going to do a fold out keyword booklet. I wasn't going to write a book for this. I didn't want to be anybody's teacher. I just wanted one keyword to be a starting point for the human being that has the deck, right? So I sat the longest with my one singular keywords for houses. And so when Julie was telling me this, I was like, okay, tell me house 1. And she did. And I love this because house 1 for me, neutral space, self, it's all encompassing. The number 1, the self, the singular, right? Number 2, it's you and the other, and it's your resources. And she's got that with it's you and the other. But the thing is that it's you and the other and a resource, but it does slide straight down into 3 because it's not, 2 is about balance. It's the yin and the yang. It's the polarity. They just sort of still singularly exist, but it isn't until you get to the 3.
Wow.
And And the 3 is your knowledge. For me, it was knowledge. It's like, what do you know? How do you communicate what you know? What is the like day? Like, we all know our day-to-day commute. Like, we know that like the back of our hand. It's part of the mundane. That's all part of house 3. And house 3 is this space that is created in Julie's sort of numerology of being able to see the other 2 things. It works so perfectly there. And then house 4, stability, roots. For me, it's roots. It's like, where do you come from at the end of the day? Like, what is your base? Whether it's good or bad, what is your foundation? And so house 4 is roots and stability. House 5, I landed with pleasures because it is love, but it's also all the things that come with love, like inspiration and our passions and the enjoyment of our children. So for me, it was like the house of pleasure. It's like when you are you singularly enjoying things, that's going to take out in house 6. And I mean, I'm sorry, in house 5. And what I love about that with Julie, because of the 5 pointed, you know, it is this beauty. It's this sacred geometry that's of beauty. You know, it's just true happiness that lives there in house 5. So of course that has space for pleasure. House 6, I have responsibilities, and I love what she says about time and space, because it is within time and space that we have to be aware of the things that need tending to. And you see in house 6 a lot, health, right? Our health is something that we need. Again, it's in these first lower halves, so it's more related to us versus the higher octaves. But house 6, you see very much tied to being in service to others, but not in a communal way, but like in a necessary way, in a way of nurturing, but also really to yourself, your own well-being. And 6 is so funny because of the pyramids. You do get that time and space. Like even in the 6s in tarot, you always have this looking forward, looking back in tarot with the number 6. So I like this responsibility aspect there, and I loved how that fit. 7, you get into that. Once you start with 7 forward, you're all higher octave again to all of them. So 7 is the relationship space. Yes, it's a relationship space, but it is that higher. It's that more like your inner, everything you have with you to that point, and then it starts interacting with the other. And it could be good or bad. It could be your enemies too, right?
You can break that into 3 plus 4.
Yes.
Plus stability.
Yes.
You know, 1 plus time and space. 1.
Well, and 7, you see a lot with 7 in spirit too. It's a spirit number very much. So I like that idea of like, what's the state of your own well-being and your own soul as it now interacts with the relationships in your life. You know, it's on that level. And then 8, cycles. For me, it was cycles because of what Julie said, power. That resonated so much because when I got to 8, the 8th house, I was very much in tune with cycles because the moon has so much power. It moves our oceans, and you see what plays out in house 8 over and over again. The idea of life, birth, death, change, the start, the middle, the ends of things. So I landed with cycles for that, but it was because of this, I had this real overwhelming loud sense of the strength of the 8th house. And so when Julie said power, I was like, that was around the time, this was a while ago, but that was around the time it's like, oh my God, this is working, you know, because like this is crazy, because Julie and I were not even talking at this point, you know, so we didn't have a personal relationship at this point. So to see these alignments, I loved her 9th one, because for me, I put journey as a keyword, because for me, the 9th house is all about the great pilgrimages of life. It's not the mundane, because it mirrors, right? It mirrors house 3. And so if house 3 is our day-to-day mundane commutes, now house 9 is the grand pilgrimages, where we're going, and where she goes with this idea of the sage and attainment. And that person, I was like, yep, that's it right there. There it is. House 10 being well-being, achievements. I like achievements because again, it's that higher octave of it is
The
like
one.
what you've it's what you've it's you but bigger after your life. What is bigger than you that came from you kind of thing. And then
Continuation.
11 I have community because again it is that idea of you in the space of others. It's your not your role from your vantage point, it's your role from the macro vantage point. And that you get with the double ones, right? It's like you and you. It's like double.
Yeah.
And then I had spirit for 12, and I like that because it is again it's now that larger octave of your of that, because what is that mirroring? That's mirroring house 6. And so if house 6 is your relationship with your own well-being and your physical health, house 12 is going to relate to your relationship with your spiritual well-being and your spiritual health. And so there's that mirroring, that next level up. But when Julie did that, and when she sent me that and I walked through just like I did that, and I just wanted to do it here just for anybody who might enjoy it back in playback, but it was like, this is how I had to read a billion books, watch a trillion videos. Like I agonized to get to those keywords. And then Julie comes along and she's like, I think I might be onto something with like the numerology. And I was like, what? like it's like so right there. It is the numerology.
It's hidden in plain sight.
It's hidden in plain sight. And so that is one of the things about true sidereal astrology that I think it could summarize true sidereal astrology as a whole is it's literally over our heads. Yeah. It's right in front of us. So much of this stuff is right here in front of us. And it's us humans mucking it up. You know, we've made astrology have to be this thing that is so complicated. And it's not, you know, it's really not. So it's beautiful and it requires a lifelong, you know, pursuit of it, but it doesn't have to be, you do not need to be a mathematician or a philosopher or a scholar or an esoteric genius to do astrology. You know? No, there's no barriers, literally.
I have a question. The 2 and the 11. Could those be different forms of union? Because we have the 2.
One more time. I keep getting sick. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
Okay. Hang on. Let me put it on mute. Oh, sweetheart. The 2 and the 11. The 2, when you go into 3, I could say there's a union of energy between the 2 that forms the 3. And then, Patrick, you were saying about the 11 being, you know, the spirit, all encompassing. Could that also be another form of union? The word union kept coming into my head when it came to the number 2 and the 11.
Yeah, for me, I think I see it as the two as being two things observing each other. But in order to see those two, because if you're just the one looking at the other, you're just seeing the one, another one. But in order to see the 2 as 2, you need a third thing to see the 2. You need an observer to see that there's 2. Otherwise, you're just seeing a reflection.
Okay.
You don't know.
Which is why you get 3 as growth, because it's growth from the...
Right.
Okay.
Although 2 is also this magical thing when you have 2 people who come together and have a child. The 2 magically becomes the 3. Yeah. So there's this family thing that happens as well. And when you put it into the 11 as the master number or the number of society and friends and other people's children, it immediately becomes, oh, we're all part of this same family. There is no other. There is only family.
Yeah.
There's no other.
It's interesting because like you could say, well, 2 is your relationship with what you have. And you could then go, the higher octave is 8, which is it's the higher octave of your relation. It's the life and death. So what you have in that relationship is very similar to the themes of life and death. You have a life and it will end. And so it's the higher octave, it's intangible, the intangible, what you have, the intangible timeline of life that you have versus the physical book that you have. Lower octave is I can touch it and feel it. Higher octave is I don't know how much of this life I'm going to have, and it's going to,
Well, what else is really interesting is that 8th house space.
Yes.
That first hour where the decline starts.
Yes, it is. Right.
I am heading for the horizon here.
Yes.
I have to make my, make my peace.
The descent.
The descent has begun.
Yes.
Let's write out the legacy now,
Yeah. So and the same goes for your 11, because your 11 is your 6 is your relationship with yourself and how you take care of yourself. The 11 higher octave is going to be your relationship with yourself and how you contribute to the greater pool of humanity. So it's always 1 through 6 is lower octave, and that it's you and you and you and you, and then
under the
6 through 12 is higher octave. It's really the same stuff, but it's you and the bigger,
the public.
Yes. Which Julie, you didn't even talk about that, but Julie did a lot of work with houses around dividing out the houses into 4 quadrants, which is actually probably worth just mentioning here. I think
the quadrants, the above and below.
Yeah.
Private.
Yeah.
Is that with? Well, here I have it behind me, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Okay, so the horizon line below. Where am I?
This is.
You have this whole thing.
Left and right.
Amy's got it.
It's one side.
One side is.
And then we got the
right. The above is what people see.
Yeah.
And as you get to the left side of the chart, it's the rising, right? So it's the part that you have control of. Moving upward to the midheaven. And then once you cross over that midheaven, then it's sort of like gravity is pulling and you don't have control. You're not, you have to just
going with it.
Happens. This is the stuff that just happens to you.
Yeah.
And some of it is public above the horizon and some of it is private below the horizon.
Yeah.
And
I have in my chart a lot of stuff going on between 1 and 6, which I thought was kind of interesting when I was looking at the book, Julie. And you gifted me this around the time of my father's passing. So I was looking at my chart currently at that time and relating it to this. I'm like, wow, I'm going through a different phase. I'm going through a different phase of this,
Yeah.
Definitely. I think last year was my nodal return. I was like the tail end of it. I was finishing. So yeah, to get this and to kind of break it down like this really was helpful.
good.
And I think that's another way too for those who are wanting to explore the houses.
Right.
Get familiar with the sequence and their characteristics. And then just start dissecting it, right? Go from upper, lower, left, right, east, west.
So if you're a person who has a lot of control over their life and, you have a lot of things happening on the left side, and you're a person who goes ahead and initiates things and makes things happen, then use that. If you've got planets over there, use that. But if you have more planets where things just happen to you, maybe you have to wait. You can't always force things to happen. You might have to wait for the timing to be right in order for things to unfold and happen.
Another thing that just popped into my head is let me show here. We didn't show this side either. Could this also represent the hemisphere of the brain, the left brain and the right brain?
Sure.
Sure. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
hmm
And did
That would be
the,
really, that
did
would
the
be worth
Egyptians
digging
know
into.
that?
Say
Mhm.
again?
Did the Egyptians know that? Is that part of the design?
Were they doing craniology, or I don't know what it's
I don't know,
called?
but there's a lot of symbolism in,
Yeah, the eye of Horus is in the brain, isn't it?
right, but yeah, the eye is the
Isn't the eye like the, I don't know
gland
where.
or something.
Yeah. I
Huh.
mean, it's
Yeah.
literally the shape of the eye of Horus is part of our anatomy. So that's kind of,
Right.
they definitely had an
Wow.
awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had a lot of medical knowledge that
True,
Western
yes.
didn't have. You know?
Medicine,
Yeah.
Mhm.
definitely.
But you know, Amy, earlier you said something about like the houses and the meanings, and I don't know, in here, in looking at those quadrants, it does make me think you know, you could, like your chart being, you said you have a lot of stuff in the 1 through 6 range, right? So
Yeah.
if you wanted to read a client and you didn't necessarily, you wanted to be a bit more macro and less micro, we could get rid of 12 houses, right? And we could do 4 quadrants. And so,
Yeah.
and so,
I
and
thought
so
about
you,
that too.
right, you could, you know,
I think use both. I mean,
yeah, synthesize the two. Yeah, because I mean, if you look at a chart, like I've got like the moon in house 1, I've got a lot in the lower half too. So I'm just looking at mine going, okay, so my feelings might not always be, my true feelings may be harder, not as visible. I've got Mercury down in the lower half, but it's in Pisces. So while my communication style may not be as visible, when it is going to be visible, it's going to be felt. It's going to be Piscean, you know? So versus like the stuff that is maybe more visible, 7 through 12, you look up there and I'm like, I got Pluto up there, I've got Uranus up there, and I've got Neptune. So what does that mean? Like I'm inclined to sort of shake things up, break things up, and blur things. No problem. Like,
And make
you know,
sure
I've
that
got
you're
like,
being heard.
and right. Well, and I've got the sun in Aries in house 3 of communication.
There you
So, you know, so like once it's there, it's going to be shared. It's the urgency, whether it's going to be
go.
received isn't always guaranteed, but the urgency to share will be there. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
you're a great communicator, Patrick.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Would love to be received. I'm writing open to be received because it is just kind of like, wow. I'm getting very flavored right now. Like where I am personally is just working with, I'm re-evaluating myself in the context of this. This has given me an opportunity to look at perception versus reality, because you say I'm a great communicator. I know that I don't always feel like a great communicator, but I feel like I do communicate what I believe, like what I you know, with conviction.
Yeah.
But because this is such a hot topic, I'm getting lots of DMs, you know, so then I'm like, okay, how is that being received? How can that be received better? How can what I'm getting for feedback only empower me around this? Because I get a lot of like, well, it can't be real because there has to be 13 houses if there's 13 signs. So I'm like, oh, it's all just going to make me, you know, I want it all to just make the communication better.
Yeah.
And make what's out there better, you know, for people. Because
think about the age, though. Age of Aquarius.
Yes.
Take that into perspective.
Yes.
It's all immediate. Everything is immediate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So fast.
And that's the thing too. We have our weight when we look at our chart in some areas, you know, when we look at the quadrants, we see the influences of the signs and the planets and all these different houses. We got the elements. Some of them were more fire or more earth, less water, less air, so on and so forth. How do we make this work? Our challenges and our gifts, our strengths, how do we make this work in this age? Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Gerald.
Hey, Gerald.
We were talking about you.
I thought I felt the presence of a stash.
So it's just, that's why I wanted to start off with, you know, getting some clarity a little bit on the ages, you know, and for those who are Aquariuses, this is their time to shine if they're not already doing it, you know, if they're not already knowing it. It's like, I have to do this. They'll be more vocal. They'll be more out in their community. They'll be more out in the world. It was all good, Gerald.
It was
It's always good.
It was me talking about how talking with you and Jamie inspired me to think about numerology with the houses. It all popped in while I was talking to you. Yeah.
And we had another one of those moments today with Amy asking a phenomenal question out of left field that I think you need to work into your book too, Julie, about if you're going to look at what's the highs and lows of an era, Julie, like that synthesized, like look to those outer planets and
send me a note.
I know that I really like somebody bullet flag
so much. There's so many layers and there's so much.
But
send me a note.
That's an important one. That's an important one. I really do think that's an important one because people are gonna say, okay, well, at the front of an era, we're going into the age of Aquarius, or we just entered it. However you want to frame that up, what can we expect? And yes, you can say that over the course of the age of Aquarius, we're going to go through these things and eventually land in the age of Capricorn. So that gives you some kind of flavor. Like we know we're going to every day be working towards the era of Capricorn.
Right.
Era of Capricorn's going to win in the end, right? So but since it's so many thousands of years potentially of an era, like what are those like the pulse when you look at a heart rate, EKG, what are those and Pluto, look to Uranus, look to Pluto, look to Neptune,
right?
Look to the ninth. Potentially the ninth planet is going to actually maybe make itself fully known in the age of Aquarius. Maybe by the time we get to the end, we're going to have a lot more around that.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going to have all kinds of connection and understanding of other intelligent beings in the universe and maybe communicate more with them and like what else is out there. That's all coming. We've been like stifled and kept in a box for a pretty long time. So now we get to break out of the box and see what else is out there.
I like the fact that there's information coming all the time. There's people are pulling resources and it's just like, wow, where did you find that? Well, share your resources so we can look into it, and it opens up so many different perspectives. Did you, Patrick?
He's already working on it.
I'm working on it.
He's already on it.
It's in process. I have many pages of writing, or as I'm calling it, channel dumps, because I'm like, whenever it just comes down, I like put it in. Page break is my best friend because I'm just page breaking and going to the new that whatever is downloaded, and I know what the real work is going to be at the end is just cleaning it all up and putting it in order.
Putting it where it belongs is like I know. So,
but Peter, thankfully, I get to benefit. Julie's got an amazing partner in Peter, but I apparently do too, because every time I talk about this, Peter's like, let it come in its own time. And him and Jolene, are really helpful in that way. Cause as an Aries, there's no passive fire. And I just like want it now, but like, I can't burn out on it. Like I have to let it. I need it to be a hearth fire, not a forest fire, So, but like I want the book now too, but I'm just gonna keep writing mine and keep yelling at Julie politely that I want hers.
I know. I'm working as I don't want to go too fast because I don't want it to be wrong. And as I'm writing, I've gone back and changed pictures because they weren't right. So as I'm going through, it's like, oh, that's not right. And then I go, oh, I know what it is. And then I have to go do another picture. So,
which goes to what you're saying, Amy. I mean, I also think that's how fast things are changing. It's like, in the middle of writing a book, you wouldn't expect to have such profound new insights.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes, you are, Gerald. You are a good editor. In fact.
Well, it's interesting, Gerald, you're going to take the platform. You're not here right now, like live, like here in the box. I did a reading for Gerald during the pandemic, and he was asking about writing. And I won't go into detail just for personal privacy, but he wanted to know about writing. and I was getting cards that he should definitely pursue it, and I don't think anything came from it. But now maybe this is the forte for him to maybe help other people.
Yeah,
You
maybe
know?
I will send Gerald the Age of Aquarius before I send it to the printer, just so
Mhm.
he can look through it and, give me some insights.
Yeah.
Because I do like your idea, Amy, of just doing the three ages this year and then spreading the rest out.
Mhm.
And I know I can finish 3 this year for sure.
How far are you with the ages? I
I've got
can't
3 ages that are pretty much written,
Okay.
and they need to be edited. And I'm working through all 12 at once so that there is a storyline through each of the houses. So I'm working now, just like working on one house through all the ages at a time as I'm writing the books. There's 12. So that helps me see the wheel around, but also see the ages through.
Because your books are basically going to be the expanded birth chart of each age.
Yeah, and
I
I
mean,
think
that
we'll
is
be
really
able
what
to
it is.
use them as like somebody has a certain rising sign, they'll be able to see where
Yes.
the phases of the moon are during that, that time. And
Yeah.
so
It's
Okay.
very exciting because it is going to give us the gift of that information, but it's also going to give us the gift of like, here's the visual, here's the timeline, here's where we can put some of this context. When we say, well, the Pisces era, we've been in Pisces for so long, and you start to think about like, what does that really meant? That this is going to expound on that in such a way that's so fully formed,
well, it'll
during
be
the era
a
of Pisces.
visual,
Yeah,
it'll be a
yeah,
visual for like working with all of the signs and all of the houses,
yes, yeah,
and also historical,
Mhm.
yes, yeah.
and there's a
So
lot of layers.
exciting.
It's crazy.
I want to touch upon, because the two of you are on journeys for writing books, writing your own book. And Patrick, you're going to be finding more information, and hopefully it's not going to deter you too much from like, oh man, now I'm going to have to rewrite this and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I got a deck recently that I saw it a few years ago, and it wasn't my focus. And I've mentioned in the past that if you feel a calling for a deck, but there's something like a nudge to it, but not calling you, just kind of let it go and maybe it'll come back to you. And this deck did. And now I am like studying every single detail of this card. I ordered the guidebook, so I'm going to be getting the guidebook and reading the information. So the reason why I'm saying this is that when you have a new tool that you're introducing into your practice, or getting information that adds into your practice, it adds a whole different perspective to the way that you've been doing things. And I like that. I like
Yeah.
to see different views. I like to see different sides of the
Yeah,
coin.
it makes everything deeper.
It does. And
Yeah.
I knew this deck would do it for me, but at the time I wasn't, it's like, no, let me stick with what I was working with. And I'm looking at the two cards I have here on this little ledge, and it's like, I'm happy it's here, and it's something that I can actually do with the Decans. So I can
Oh,
actually do a Decan walkthrough with this deck. And but I don't know if I'll do it, because I know we're getting ready to go into Pisces, Aries, whichever side of astrology you're on for the start of the season. But yeah, it's just like when you find that new source of information, it's very exciting and
yeah.
it's very grandiose. So I like that.
The Decans are so like, I just love the Decans so much. And I think it's so unfortunate because when we see the Decans in tarot, it is always, it's not actually the astrology, it's the zodiac signs, and it's the three divisions of, decan 1, 2, and 3 of Aries is, it's always going to be the first part of spring. And so it's so accurate, but it's off timing wise. And so, like right now, for example, I've done I've done almost 9 decans. I'm in my 9th year of decan walks, but now I'm walking through the decans in what I would say the real way, right? Which is, I still give like the 8, 9, and 10 of cups to Pisces, 8, 9, and 10. So since it's Pisces season right now, I'm not breaking down anymore the 10 days of 8 of cups, 10 days of 9 of cups, 10 days of 10 of cups. I'm just for the entire duration of Pisces season, which is long because Pisces is a long constellation. I'm sitting with my active cards right now are the 8, 9, and 10 of cups. Yeah. And I let them all flow, and I look at them as one reading, and I work with them during the season of Pisces. And it's the closest you can get right now to working with decans in an accurate way in terms of timing. But I think it's important to know, right, that the decans, that's not the original meaning or the use of the decans in the Egyptian culture.
I want to do similar too, is just change the planetary placement, because I said this year I'm going to do all sidereal. So I just have to back the signs a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think hang on one second. Yeah, next week.
The 19th.
Yeah. Well, no, I have the 20th for Aries 1.
Well, but it won't be. It would be. They're going to tell you it's Aries 1.
Correct. It's Pisces. It's Pisces 3, right?
It would be Pisces 3. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's if you want to divide them out into 10. So the thing to do, that what I'm finding, or the thing that I found that's worked, is look at how many days there are of Pisces season and divide it out into 3. The 3 cards, and then you'll be able to come up with your 3 dates. So I'm blanking right now, but I think Pisces, I wish I knew how many days there are of Pisces season, but if you divide out the actual number,
is it 37?
Yeah, so then you can take 37, divide it by 3, and that gives you you can get a general idea of okay, these days are the 8 of cups, these days are the 9 of cups, and these days are the 10. I found that for me, I'm just sitting with all 3 at the same time now, because it's too wonky. Some of those are not perfectly divided. You can't divide them out perfectly.
Yeah.
So which day do you give 10 days and which day do you give 11 days?
And they'll be off by maybe 2 days, I guess, a few days in between.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them could be really like Pisces. Pisces is going into Aries season quite a bit, in terms of the decan structure. Right. So, but yeah, where I really struggle with it? I really struggle with it still very much on the winter solstice, because the winter solstice, December 21st, is always in the system. It's the 2, 3, and 4 of Pentacles. It's Capricorn. Right. And so I love, for 8 years, I've sat with Capricorn energy from December 21st up through. And now I was I got to Christmas this year, winter solstice, and I was I want my coin energy. I need my pentacle energy, because this is when I'm setting up my planner for the new year, which is very in alignment to Capricorn energy. And I'm wow, this doesn't, but what I found is I'm challenging myself right now. Right now, I'm just okay, it wasn't Capricorn energy on the winter solstice, it was Sagittarius energy. So what does that mean? And so I was working with the 8, 9, and 10 of Wands, and that added a whole new, like you said, perspective, but it's been probably one of the hardest things, because I am deeper into the decans than I even am into the astrology, the real sky. And so it's I've really struggled. I've really, really struggled with the decans.
Can you bring that aspect into your book? I'd like to make a request. Can you oh, come on.
I mean, I definitely feel like
the houses. What if you use the houses with the decans? What if you use the houses?
Well, the decans,
because the houses are always going to be 30 degrees.
Right. You could. I've looked at it seasonality wise. I've thought to myself, well, what if What if the 3 parts of a season, the start, the middle, and the end, are just the decans? But then I'm like, I don't know. Like for me, the Egyptians have. I feel like there was so much truth in that 36 10-day week that there's this part of me that wants to figure that out. But like Julie and I have talked about, since we don't know the stars
I
that they
know.
were actually aligned to, it makes it really hard to follow the decans.
Yeah,
So
I want the stars, the original stars, and I want the stories.
right.
I
And
want
so
that.
that's kind of where I am with the decans, is it's really, really hard to want to dive too deep, because at this point I know that it's not fully revealed yet. And like, so I'm like,
Too fluffy.
yeah, it's too fluffy. It's like,
Yeah.
so I don't know if I want to add that to the book, because I already know right now it's not. Like I could add my approach, like I could definitely add my approach to it.
Yeah,
But I would be very clear that this is where I am with it right now. It's not, and it's definitely like the ice is not frozen. Like don't ice skate right now on this lake. You know?
The ice is thin.
Well, here,
Carefully.
Gerald mentioned this. How about the seasons?
Oh, 1000%. The seasons are like the name of the game, like as above, so below. They're
Yeah.
like, but if you're going to work with the seasons, and I truly believe I will get on a box any day of the week and say, sink into nature and align yourself with the seasons. It's so critical. But if you're going to do that by the solstices and the equinoxes and the measurement of light. And do not marry the constellations to fix them permanently to the seasons, because the constellations are not fixed to the seasons. You know, do yourself that favor and work with, like right now, we are in the tail end of winter. We've got 2 days, 1 day, really 1 day left of winter. And the sun is very much still in the very beginning of Pisces. And the whole world tomorrow on the equinox is going to be saying, it's the start of Aries season. Tomorrow is going to be a really irritating day, because everywhere it's going to be like, it's Aries. The sun is in Aries. The sun's like not even close to Aries right now. It's not even close to Aries right now. So it's so irritating, because you can still work with, it's still the season of spring and the season of fall in the southern hemisphere, but the sun's in Pisces. Let that
forgetting we're that close to the equinox.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. Oh no, it's the 19th. It's the 19th.
Yeah.
And so
and we have an eclipse. The full moon will be
the 25th. March 25th.
So
let's talk about that. Oh, I wish Robin was here.
I know.
I know, and I have my live reading.
For her, is it she's such an empath that I understand.
This is her lane. Yeah.
She could get sick, because
I do have to.
So much energy.
I have like 3 minutes, because I've got my live weekly reading in 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I didn't even realize the time. I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost 8 o'clock. I got to go do a live.
I know this was going to happen.
You're going to make it. You might have to simulcast.
I know.
Just really quick, between the two of you, our eclipses, what do you have to say?
It's a time that fires people up and things align. It's temporary. Like the equinox is temporary, but these are moments where you have these serendipitous alignments with people, and people get really fired up.
I definitely look at them as omen-esque type energy. Solar eclipses are more outward expressions of change. Lunar eclipses are more. Oh, Robin! Oh,
it's a lot of energy.
I was listening, but I couldn't come. I was listening to you though. That's
it's
why
a lot of energy for an empathic woman like you
to
handle.
It is.
I know, because when I do a conference, I'm always sick.
Are you really?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I get a migraine and get totally sick every time. Every time.
As Amy sniffles.
I think you hear that.
I feel a little bit better. I feel better now that you said that, Julie. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
No, it's all the energy. It's all the energy, and it's probably amplified with all the rocks that you have around.
Yes.
It's too many people thinking about you and too much energy.
And I'm an empath, and I have a lot.
Yeah. I do okay with YouTube's. It's in person that kills me every time.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm struggling with the YouTubes.
You're used to it. Is that what you said?
No, I said I'm starting to struggle with the YouTubes, like social media in general. I'm definitely getting to the point where, like, I already know, like, things like this great, but like I know I'm dialing back here pretty soon. In some of the, I need to like fill the bucket and step out, because it's just a lot of like the work, the personal practice stuff. The work is still
Too
going to
much.
take place, but this outward facing,
Aw, thank you.
exposed
Carol.
self needs to
Thank
needs a rest.
Well, ask Robin the question that you were saying you wished Robin was here to answer.
I forgot.
It's okay. Message me later if you haven't.
This is
Oh,
what
we were
happens,
talking about
happens after
the
50.
decans. We were talking about the seasons.
The
And they
seasons.
said, oh, Robin would know.
Oh, the equinox. She wanted to know
Yes.
about her feelings about
I
eclipses
don't
and
know.
the equinox.
What
And
do I feel?
yeah,
Patrick, hang on just a little bit longer.
I'm gonna no,
I'm
I'm going to I'm putting a message up right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of energy there. Am I going to? It's March 21st, right? Isn't it? Or no?
The 25th. We have
25th
two.
is
we have an
the
eclipse.
It's the
And we
25th.
have the equinox this year. So are the
Equinox is on the 19th,
Yeah.
and then the
double big stuff
20
happening.
20. The Sunday is right.
Yeah, the 25th
Lunar.
is an
Yeah.
eclipse.
I read
28th
Yeah.
Monday is the eclipse, and then the spring
It's
equinox 19th.
Tuesday.
Then we
Yeah.
have April 8th.
Yeah, the big
Right.
one.
That's
The big one.
a solar eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's in Virgo.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Bad?
It's not bad.
No.
I mean, I would just say it's a lunar eclipse, so I would say internal change in regards to maybe the way in which you're taking care of yourself. Maybe there will be a shift in the way you prioritize your relationship with responsibility, your relationship with how you take care of yourself and others. There could be a shift in priorities. It's funny, but but I can see, because Virgo is very like no muss, no fuss, I feel like,
Mhm.
and practicality in the highest sense of the word. And if it's a lunar eclipse happening in that sign, and lunar eclipse tends to play out internally. In my experience, I feel lunar eclipses, I see solar eclipses. So lunar eclipse, I would say we're probably going to feel a potential shift in some of that way.
Nothing great.
It's going to be happening in the middle of the night, so we might be up. Maybe we'll have
Yeah.
some dreams.
I hope it doesn't result in being like, okay, I'm rewriting the whole book.
No. That could happen during the Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
it is happening on the same the
3 a.m.
equinox is happening. Mars is moving into Aquarius on the same day as the equinox. Mars will
Mhm.
shift into Aquarius.
Oh,
So
okay. Well, that's
it's
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Other people.
What do you feel, Robin, with the eclipses?
What do I feel with the energy?
Yeah, for this year especially.
I think it's a good thing. We'll wait and see how this one goes, and I'll let you know about the next one. But I think it's a good thing. It's going to ground us a little bit. In Virgo, and during that time, there's something out with the sun's in Pisces. Something's going on, so there's a balance there. What else can I say about it?
It doesn't sound so significant. It's not going to be
Huge. Is that what you mean?
yeah. It's not going to be overwhelmingly no.
Not like April. I think April's gonna be big.
Okay. What signs do you feel are going to be affected by that one in particular?
Which one? April?
The solar eclipse.
It's in Pisces, so
Pisces people and Virgo people.
Ooh, that's right. It's opposites. Forgot.
Yeah. And the people squaring.
Square.
The people whose signs are squaring. And if you have planets that are in that space, just go look on the app and see if you have planets in that space.
See if it's near home.
Right.
If you feel at home.
Right.
I don't. I won't.
You'll be fine, you feel, for that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that on that solar eclipse in April, That's a Monday, and that's the only thing of cosmic significance happening that week.
Mm.
And then on the lunar eclipse on Monday the 25th, that's on a Monday as well, and that's the only thing happening that week too. So maybe that's
It's a
by
good thing.
design. Maybe
Yeah.
that's by design.
All we
You
can
know,
handle.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I was debating if I should go out and do readings on those days of the eclipse, because sometimes they say the energy could be a little dismissive. It could be,
No, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
okay.
sometimes eclipses can be really great for meeting people who add a piece to the puzzle.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, the last
What
time we had
happened?
an eclipse, I
Yeah,
was at a
something happened to
party
you.
and had some really interesting conversations with people at this
Okay.
party.
Yeah, that
It
does
was
bring
this
out a lot.
temporary alignment.
You also on a lunar or a solar eclipse made the decision to finally pull the trigger and create Journey into Egypt too.
Yep.
Mhm.
Mm.
That kind of culminated and came to a head
Yeah.
that
What sign
summer.
was it in?
It was in, I think it was in July, and I
So,
think it was a new moon. So,
Lunar
um,
no, solar,
was it solar?
right?
Yeah. It was a
Yeah.
new moon. So there was a solar eclipse, and it
Yeah.
was in, I think it was in July. I can
It
give you
was
the
the
exact date.
summer. I remember you telling me.
Summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
the Cancer, right? The sign of Cancer.
Might have been like
Right.
Gemini because it was probably
That's
in the
right.
middle of.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
So, and I
Yeah,
had gotten a massage, and then that night I went to sleep, and it was an eclipse, and it was like I had the whole download.
Mhm.
Like I
Wow.
was
It was
open.
time.
I've been resistant.
well, and that's the real start of your real sky movement too.
Yeah, it was. That was the beginning.
That was the beginning for the whole descent for you, really. Well, you had already descended. This was the
This was
ascending.
the
This was the ascending into your rightfully claimed space here.
That was just the first step in, and then the download came over the next 15, 14 is still downloading.
I think it's fascinating with these eclipses how they influence people in many ways. Sometimes they say eclipses aren't a good time to create a project. I guess it depends on the sign that's in, so on and so forth. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well,
I definitely think that.
Yeah, because the alignment is a short thing. Wait for it to gel. Like you can make a decision, but
it's so circumstantial to your own life. Like if it starts snowing in the middle of July, like it's not inherently bad, but it might really screw up your plans. So it's the same kind of thing. It's like this is one of those real hotspot moments where whatever it is going to play out, and depending on your plans and the circumstances of your life, it's either going to be like something, and the more you resist it, I think, get as loose as a goose on eclipses. Be willing to really flow with whatever that energy is, and you'll be fine. But if you stay fixed into something like, no matter what, we're gonna have a good time, like maybe not.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Don't get married on an eclipse. That. Don't marry your decision on an eclipse, because it's probably gonna slip out of that alignment. And
I mean, there's a reason why so many cultures over so many thousands of years, I mean, you see eclipse energy almost always being described as omen-esque, like it's profound. So like it doesn't mean be paranoid, but it does mean just be sitting still.
Well, I mean, to the ancient people, when the sun disappeared,
yes, that was terrifying.
It was eaten by the moon. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's not supposed to happen.
Right.
But now you can see that this is an alignment. Things are lined up. Things are
okay.
All together.
And those who are born during an eclipse, they're
very affected by eclipses.
Oh, I can imagine.
I have an oldest child who was born between eclipses, and he's very affected by eclipses. Does
Mm,
very rash things when there are eclipses.
highly sensitive.
Yeah.
What sign?
Aquarius.
Hmm.
Okay.
I'm really curious to meet like somebody who had like and it was born with an eclipse moon in like the moon was in Ophiuchus. Because
Yeah.
that's gonna be like like that's what
Moon is in
that's spinning the 100 on the wheel of fortune and the on the Price is Right, you know.
first quarter Taurus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Mm.
Okay, well, let's end here. Robin, I hope
Loved
you're
it.
feeling good, okay? Oh, well, she's not feeling good, obviously.
No,
It's
she's
the
not.
energy.
The energy's
Send
too much for her.
It's not, yeah.
send her the good
Yes.
vibes to her box,
And I hope she's not picking it from me, not that it matters, if it's me, but when you're really empathic, you could pick up energy from a lot of
Sure.
places. So,
Yeah.
well, Robin, we love you.
We love
Please,
you, Robin.
please just take it easy tonight.
Yeah. Thanks for showing up, Robin.
Yes, just for listening and just putting in your comments. Every little bit helps, okay? Julie and Patrick, just stand by, okay, as we shut down. Everyone, just thanks for listening. This was more of just us discussing and just, putting insight into things, taking
Yeah.
different perspectives.
Thanks for having us, Amy.
Yeah, thank you
Always.
so much, Amy. It's just
Yeah.
it's a great opportunity to have the free flow. So
Yes. We'll do it again. We'll talk about some other subjects and whatnot to continue it onward. I think once a month works good.
Yeah.
So if you do have any questions, I put the contact information for Julie and Patrick. I think Robin has a website. I can't remember if she does. I don't think she does. I'm not
Tarot
certain.
by Robin.
Is
yeah,
it Tarot
that's
by
it. Yeah,
Robin?
yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I put that in. For some reason it's not coming to me that she does have a website. Tarot by Robin. So I'll add that if I didn't. And so stay tuned, everyone. I'll be back in some way, shape, or form. I just don't know when and in what form I'm going to be in, but
You get better too. Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's
No.
the corner? Sending the vibes up to your corner too.
Thank you. Thank you. When you have this happening, it's for a reason. So
Yeah,
I
totally.
understand it. Okay, everyone have a wonderful week. Happy Pisces, happy spring equinox. Enjoy the week the best way that you can. Okay. I'll see you guys soon. Hang tight, Julie and Patrick.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.